This is an RNZ podcast.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ryan, and welcome to It Takes a Village. Each week I talk to parenting experts, authors, psychologists and others about the trials and triumphs of raising a family. You can listen on 9 to noon on RNZ National every Thursday, about 11:20, or right here on this podcast. Enjoy. Most kids will be back to school by now, but not all will be feeling settled in their classroom. The return to school nerves can be a normal reaction after the long summer break, particularly for children who've moved up to the next level of schooling or changed schools completely. But what if the anxiety doesn't subside? When should parents be concerned? What can they do about it? Clinical psychologist Jackie Maguire, good morning to you. Welcome.
Kia ora, Catherine. Happy New Year.
Everyone has anxiety with the start of the new year. In some ways, don't they? Everyone getting back to their, you going back to work.
Probably not everybody. Some people love change. I'm not one of them. But I think, for the majority, absolutely any form of shift and change to routine, schedule, predictability. Take that to children. Who's my new teacher? Who's in my class? Where will I sit? Ambiguity absolutely breeds angst.
And does this affect children of all ages?
I think so. If you were speaking with an adult around starting a new job, I'd be saying to them, give yourself 6 months, to settle and find your way and get adjusted. If you start saying that when it comes to children, give them 6 months and half the year's gone. But I think that just shows that for all of us, finding our feet and getting settled into routine and becoming familiar takes time.
It can be as simple as you say, or as little a change as new classroom, that's one further along than the last one, and a new teacher, perhaps a teacher who you were already familiar with, or it can be substantial. It can be whole new school and perhaps a whole new level of schooling, making the break from intermediate to secondary or whatever. What's some of the typical behaviours that people will exhibit?
Well, it can go both ways, Catherine. So when you talk about anxiety or adjustment, some children can internalise. So they may go quiet, they may stop talking, they might spend more time in their room, their mood might look lower. You can then have the other end of the spectrum where you start to get externalised behaviours, so more tantrums or irritability in older children, hypersensitivity, grumpiness. So, you can look at the spectrum and go quieter to louder and anywhere along there. I think you also can see, a kindergarten teacher once called it soda bottling to me, and it stuck with me, that term, in terms of children can try really hard to hold it together at school, no matter what age they are in education, 5-year-olds through to 16-year-olds. I try and hold it together for my peers, for the teacher to get through, and that can take a huge amount of concentration, emotion regulation, and then you walk through the door and out it spews. And I just think that soda bottling metaphor is quite a helpful way of thinking about it.
For younger children, also around your adolescents and your teens who've got that, ruling kind of physiological change happening at the same time, that can be a real, expect the explosion or two, right?
Correct.
For the same reason.
Because where's the baseline? So if you've got a adolescent going through puberty and you've got the hormones that are raging on underneath, then absolutely, your baseline is, or they've got less tolerance, right? So you're going to see explosions. But
typically, will it be behaviour that you're familiar with your young person, or can it be new behaviour that you start to see?
Well, I think children start to amplify what their baselines are or what fundamentally they express and they show. So, if you think about a child that perhaps is neurodivergent, or a child that's highly sensitive, or a child that's prone to anxiety, you might start to see those amplified. So more tears, more sore tummies, starting to come out. If you've got a child that gets angry and lashes out, I'd expect when they come home you start to see those behaviours happening. Are there new things that show up? Maybe. I think children always surprise us, Catherine. But I think the biggest thing to look for is there change, or is there an amplification or an intensity to that behaviour? And to have patience and kindness that it's adjusting.
For those who withdraw, the challenge there is you can't see what's going on as easily as you can when they explode and do the soda bottle in front of you.
Yes.
And so then what are you trying to do in terms of understanding what's happening for them?
And I think also it's important to put some societal context to this too. So likelihood is that you have got parents at the moment that are tired, that have been managing juggling schedules and children all holidays. And so part of supporting children as parents is that you're present and aware, and that you've got emotional capacity to carry them and spot their signs of concern. And, if you've got a child that looks overwhelmed, that maybe you go, okay, I'm going to give them space and I'm going to feed them, because hangry children make it worse. And then when they look like they've got a bit of, recovery, then I'll ask them how their day is rather than bombarding them. All of that takes emotional load and capacity for parents. So I think, one, it's about acknowledging that we're kind of in a pressure cooker situation where you've got tired, probably double working families trying to navigate and manage this period of time, and then going, okay, we need to give parents some ease to spot the signs of concern, Catherine, to then be able to respond to them. So with the withdrawing quiet child, one, that means I've got to be able to notice that withdrawing might be a sign of concern and not just a reprieve for the parent that goes, I've got a chance to catch my breath. Actually, maybe the withdrawing is a sign of concern, and I might want to follow that up and go, how are you, and are you okay, and how do I coax you out of your room, for example. So
that compassion you're talking about is also for yourself.
Totally.
The other point, of course, is, and we've talked about it a lot this week on RNZ, is the financial pressures at this time of year, something else that really is a load on parents who are paying for school uniforms and books and devices and everything to get a child back to school. So, it is a time where you too are probably under a bit of anxiety, potentially, and trying to settle yourself.
Well, I remember when I first had my eldest daughter, a New Zealand writer produced a book called Mindful Parenting. Her name was Shirley Pastroff. And she spoke about, one of the best things we can do to support children to regulate, no matter what age they are, is to be calm ourselves. Emotions are contagious. And so if I'm in red brain, if I'm anxious, if I'm stressed about the finances, the school, the fact that I'm burnt out from the holidays and navigating work and children, then likelihood is my ability to respond to my kids in the way that they need is going to decrease. And so I think it's really important that we acknowledge that one of the best things we can do is, and as a parent, is be in green brain, is be calm, so that we can co-regulate and respond and do all the things we need to do that are helpful. But that takes capacity, Catherine, and it's hard in the environment that we're living in.
Let's talk about the child that withdraws then as a response to anxiety, and how you can try and elicit some understanding of what's happening for them and hopefully provide some reassurance. What are some of the techniques?
Yeah. So I think having a safe base at home is helpful when the outside world is new. It's about understanding how they're feeling. And so, some children might have language for that, some children might not. So asking how questions and what questions are useful rather than closed-ended questions. How did you find today? What was good about today? I'm just wondering, what are the things that feel good at school? What are the things that might feel scary or new? If you can ask questions like that, you can elicit what's going on for the child. And then I think it's about setting up some good techniques at home to help them feel calm. Do you do mindfulness as a family before you go to bed, for example, or have some routines to physiologically help calm a child down? Do you try and have fun times at home to bring them out and play a game, or get them to help you with the cooking, or do something where there's positive emotion involved? Because positive emotions have a wonderful ability to decrease negative emotions like anxiety. Do you try and get them out to exercise? Because we know you're trying to lower that baseline adrenaline or cortisol that's rushing around in their body. Exercise is really useful for that. Helping children when they're talking. I've spoken with you before, Catherine, when you name it, you tame it. So if you're able to help a child put language to how they're feeling, that actually helps regulate that themselves. So I think it is about trying to use your techniques to, connect with them, because connection decreases anxiety. Physiologically get them moving or calm, because that will help, regulate those feelings. Emotionally bring on the positive, because that helps reduce the negative. And so, it's going back almost through that Te Whare Tapa Whā model of mental health. Get your body moving, get your emotions calm, try and name it to tame it to get your thinking right. What can you do that they enjoy, because that spiritually boosts their mental health and well-being, and connect with them socially.
The anxiety is a particular kind of feeling. We talk a lot about big feelings, obviously, because you can ruminate on something and you know what you're worried about.
Yes.
You can have a particular response or a particular sadness as an emotion.
Yes.
Anxiety often you don't even really know why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Yes.
It's quite physiological,
yes.
which is why you're talking about physical responses to help
Yes.
to help calm.
And I think it's useful to normalise that, like to talk about it with your child and go, hey, it's really normal if I start a new job, or I can remember when I was at school, going back to school, that I can feel like I've got butterflies in my stomach, or I can feel grumpy or irritable, and all of that is my body responding to change. And, for all of us, our bodies aren't very good at responding to new things. I'm just wondering, have you felt like that? And then again, you're painting a picture to enable a child to go, oh yeah, I recognise some of those signs, or I don't. And if they say yes, then it's going, okay, well, would it be helpful if I shared with you some of the things I do when I'm getting used to change? Part of that might be, problem solving. What are the things that I'm finding hard or scary, and what could we put in place to make that easier? Routines, talking with the teacher about what to expect during the day. What are the controllable things? Because one of the amazing, techniques for anxiety is to go, what are the things I can control and what are the things that I can't? Being able to paint a picture of that. If the things are in your control, problem solve it, make a plan, get familiar with it, expose yourself to it, like working out where the bag goes, or walking the route to school, or if you've got an adolescent, talking about, the changes. For example, if you go to high school, you're going to have to walk from classroom to classroom between subjects. You don't sit in the same class all day. Should we go and do that together?
It's a really good point, and some of it might have happened, bearing in mind what you were saying about everybody in the household having their stresses. Some of it might have happened, particularly with big transitions, even before we get to the start of the school year. But it's still not too late to be talking these things through or rehearsing some of these things
Absolutely
as well.
not. And to be ensuring, I think, that you get the recovery and downtime at the early start of the year. So I know we've spoken before, Catherine, about overloading children. So it's important that children get recovery as well.
Really good point. This is not the time to do it. Like, their brains are already absorbing so much, and we're talking about things that essentially calm them. So the last thing you want to do is load up ever more stresses and activities and deadlines. And rush.
Yeah.
It's a time for not rushing. We can pile those on a little bit later. The high school transition, again, how much, and this is very individualised on your young person, but how much do you ask? How much do you want to talk? How much do you perhaps want your own information about what's happening for that young person? And then how much do you just leave them space actually to adapt to it? Can you almost, if you're not careful, risk feeding anxiety if you're overloading the questions and wanting the feedback?
Totally, and if you're anxious as a parent, like, that's a big deal, right? Watching your child go off to high school and knowing how important social relationships are.
You made me friends here. What's your teacher like? All this stuff.
Absolutely, and emotions are contagious. So if I'm anxious and I'm role modelling the anxiety, or if I'm questioning too much, there's absolutely a chance that will jump and latch on to my young person. And so I think it's good to be interested, but to also be able to contain that questioning. So like worry time is an example. It's a strategy for maintaining anxiety. From 4 till 4:30 you can worry as much as you want, Catherine, and then the worries go in the box and they go on the shelf till tomorrow. Maybe also as a parent you go, okay, I'm going to pick a time in the night where we check in, and maybe we know that that's our check-in time, but it's contained, and outside of that we just hang out, or we do things together, or I don't just pepper my questions all day, every day.
This was always Cec Lash's advice as well, particularly with boys. You can ask the question, or you can make the point, very directly sometimes. And then you just wait.
Yes.
You might wait 2 days until that response comes back.
Yeah.
The now, don't expect it. And perhaps also at a time where some children, let's face it, can become borderline monosyllabic.
Yes.
Again, if you're peppering, you're not necessarily helping.
And routines might help, Catherine. So if you're a family where there's just a norm that we sit down together for dinner, then even if you do have a teenager that's gone to their room, there's an expectation that you come down for dinner, and there's touch point together as a family, and you can again build in routines through dinner time. So,
At what point is a normal anxiety something to be a bit more concerned about? What would you be looking for someone who's thinking, I feel like I need some help with this?
Yeah, so my rule of thumb is it starts to get in the way of living life. So if you have a child that has sore tummies or physical symptoms on a pretty consistent basis, and they're not wanting to go to school, if you've got a child that's withdrawing from social connections, or they used to go out and hang out with friends or try and organise play dates, and now they're wanting to just stay home, if you notice that their concentration is going wonky at home, or you check in with the teacher and they say that they notice that the child can't concentrate in class and do their work, if they're I call, I'm trying to find the politically correct term for the radio, Catherine. I call them OTT emotions. When you start to see them over the top because things are changing and tricky and you get explosions of emotion, if that's having significant impact on the family dynamics, your ability to parent, like if it's starting to get in the way of life for a continued period of time, and that would be like, okay, this is now going on for 4 weeks, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I'd be going, okay.
Where can people get help? Well,
where can people get help?
The schools themselves hopefully have either counselling services or
talking to the classroom teacher. I think around what they're noticing. I think if you've got good people in your lives, like friends with children the same age, talk with them about what they notice with their children. Do they have any good techniques? I'm going to say it. There are some wonderful free AI therapy tools. Use them, talk to it, ask some questions. I think if your child's got a particular need or, they've got a diagnosable illness or, I'm not saying go to AI for great specialised therapy, but for general information about what should I spot, is this normal, I think ask and see if there's any useful feedback that comes back. And then I think if you're particularly worried, I'd be going, okay, do I need to talk to the GP and ask about whether I should, get some more information for my young person? Is that about going to see, a counsellor or a local psychologist, or do I need some external help if this is going on?
You made such a good point earlier about the stress that parents themselves are under, particularly at this time of year. Financial stress, time stress, juggling, childcare, all of these things. And perhaps the starting point is actually getting yourself in your own, as you say, your own green zone, your own place. What do you make? There was some debate sparked earlier in the holidays about just how long kids are off school. And of course, it's not just kids being off school, that means households having to manage entirely, including parents' working commitments and all these other things. Do you have a view on the length of our school holidays?
Yeah, I have a personal view. It was my birthday actually yesterday, Catherine, and
happy birthday.
And thank you. And the reason I share that with the country is that it was the first day back at school, and I got so many messages from friends saying, best birthday present ever, school starting today. And I just thought you can take that as tongue-in-cheek, but what's the message underneath?
Yeah.
Now, I think historically school holidays in the summer were so long for agricultural reasons. Children could help on the farm or help with, crops. And, I think when you look historically back, that seems to be the rationale of why summer holidays are so long and classrooms getting too hot. I think you now look and go, primary schools are off for 7 weeks, secondary schools for longer. A lot of children need routine. They need routine and engagement and social connection, as well as balancing the need for recovery, so we don't have children and teachers that are burnt out.
That's the other side of the coin, though. The teachers will also say, here we are trying to do work on introducing new curriculums and this and that and updated new curriculums and everything else. The whole system has to respond if that's going to happen, right?
And I like huge credit to teachers. I couldn't do their job in terms of being able to manage not only the curriculum needs but the behavioural and emotional needs of children. So I think there's probably a sweet song. Personally, Catherine, it felt a little long. Yes, my daughter went back to kindergarten on the 12th of January and that felt perfect.
In fact, December 28th now I think about it. Jackie, thanks very much. Always appreciate it. Jackie McQuire, clinical psychologist.